A simple county clerk. Her actions and lack of action have placed Kim Davis in jail and has the nation talking about state rights versus the Supreme Court. Her attorney will fill in the gaps. Pay no attention to the gentleman from Vermont or the Veep who may yet get into the race. We're certain the decision to make Hillary Clinton more warm and fuzzy has nothing at all to do with them. There's something about high school football in Texas that makes us not surprised at all what two players did to an official, when overzealousness and lack of on-field discipline may lead to criminal charges. And in telling it like it is, a new promise we as Americans need to make to ourselves after every Labor Day. And there is a football connection here as well. Break the huddle, put the chin strap on, here come the real hits. I'm Ed Berliner. This is The Hard Line for Tuesday, September 8th, 2015.
It is far more than one clerk saying she will not issue marriage licenses. It's that every one of us will have to decide whether or not we want to keep this great republic or whether we're willing to sacrifice it and surrender it to tyranny.
Only about 24,000 people live in Rowan County, Kentucky, tucked along the edge of the Appalachian Mountains, and I'll wager most of America wouldn't be able to find it on a map some 3 weeks ago. Now, however, the county is either famous or infamous, depending on your point of view. The home of elected county clerk Kim Davis, who decided her faith was the ultimate law when it came to carrying out the edicts of the U.S. Supreme Court, a devout Christian who believes she is in the right by not issuing a marriage license to a same-sex couple. Someone whom her lawyer believes should be compared to Dr. Martin Luther King in seeking justice. Let's welcome in one of her attorneys to fill in the blanks. Roger Gannam joins us. Roger, thank you so much for being here this evening.
Thank you for having me, Ed.
Roger, the interesting thing, Kim Davis has been freed from jail in Kentucky. But here's the interesting part. The judge said, Defendant Davis shall not interfere in any way, directly or indirectly, with the efforts of her deputy clerks to issue marriage licenses to all legally eligible couples. Will she adhere to that edict?
Well, that's a great question. The answer is this. Kim Davis will not violate her conscience. And as long as she's being asked to have marriage licenses issued under her authority and under her name, she simply cannot do that. Whether there's space in this order for Kim Davis to proceed without violating her conscience, that remains to be seen. It's just been entered today, and as a legal team, we have to meet with our client and find out what her wishes are and then move forward.
Okay, if I may then sort of extrapolate what you just said there, it sounds to me as if Kim Davis will indeed still put her name on marriage licenses and will then say no to same-sex couples. Am I correct?
Not quite, but close. Kim Davis hasn't issued any marriage licenses since the Supreme Court decision, and she made that decision so that she wouldn't treat any couples differently from any other. So going forward, Kim Davis cannot allow for any licenses to be issued under her authority and under her name. Again, that leaves us with the issue of her deputy clerks who have been issuing licenses not under her authority, but under the authority of the federal district judge who told them to do it on threat of putting them in jail, just like he did to their boss. So again, this is a new development today, not something that we were necessarily looking for today. We have to meet with our client and find out how she's going to comply with this order or how she's going to operate her office in light of it.
Is she prepared to go back to jail if indeed she refuses again and the judge goes right to this point and says, you did not follow my edict? Is she prepared to go right back to jail?
I think Kim Davis has shown us that she would rather go to jail than violate her conscience. So the answer there is if Judge Bunning puts it to her in those terms, will you violate your conscience or obey my order, Kim Davis is not going to violate her conscience.
Now, please correct me if I'm wrong, but you and the fellow lawyers who are representing Ms. Davis, you've said that the licenses that have been issued at this point are void because she did not authorize them. Is that correct?
Yes, we don't believe they are valid because Kentucky law requires licenses to be issued on the authority of the county clerk, and that's Kim Davis. She hasn't given her authority for the issuance of a license since June 26th. But this whole thing could be solved if the governor of Kentucky, who has the power to do this, would simply provide for another authorization, another authorizing officer for those licenses to be issued so that they can perhaps even come out of Rowan County but just not on Kim Davis's authority or under her name. She would have no objection to that if the governor would simply provide that accommodation.
What about those people who say, and again, we're going to have Alan Dershowitz on here in just a moment, and I want to have him answer to some of the things that you've just said. But what about this? The people who say that she is an elected official. The law of the United States, as set by the Supreme Court, says that she must issue these licenses, and as an elected official, she must then do exactly what the law and the Constitution tells her to do. What about those critics?
Kim Davis respects the law, but the fact is the United States Supreme Court, in its ruling this summer, did not say who within a state has to issue marriage licenses. The Supreme Court simply said states must treat same-sex marriages on the same terms.
But isn't that cutting hairs, if you don't mind my saying? Isn't that sort of cutting fine hairs here? Because, again, I'm going to play devil's advocate on this. If the Supreme Court then lays out the decision, it becomes part of the Constitution, it becomes part of law, aren't you sort of just cutting hairs there?
No, not at all, because the Supreme Court's never said how states have to administer their marriage licensing schemes. Every state does it differently. And so it's the law of Kentucky that says that every person is entitled to a religious accommodation if their religious exercise is substantially burdened. And that doesn't exclude elected officials. It says every person. So Kim Davis has a right under Kentucky law to this accommodation. The state of Kentucky can still comply with the Obergefell decision this summer by providing marriage licenses in any number of ways. Even the governor has admitted that. So what Kim Davis is asking for is the ability to comply with the law without leaving the state of Kentucky in a situation where it can't comply with the Supreme Court. The state of Kentucky absolutely can do both.
Okay, I have one other thing I need. Am I correct? You just used the phrase marriage licensing schemes. You seem to be calling what the Supreme Court said basically nothing more than a scheme.
No, what I mean by that is that every state has a way that they do marriage licenses, and I refer to that generally as the state's marriage licensing scheme. Generally, it's for the legislatures to decide what that is. In the state of Kentucky, the governor has the power to temporarily create a new scheme to give the General Assembly time to meet and make permanent changes.
Doesn't a scheme, though, sound kind of underhanded?
Well, you can take it that way, but I think generally it's a legal term.
Okay, it sounds like it's almost underhanded. That's all. There are people who are going to say, a scheme to me sounds like somebody basically is plotting to do something that might be against the law. But you didn't mean it that way, correct?
No, not at all.
Okay. All right. If you would stand by just a moment, I want you here as well. Let's go ahead and welcome now Harvard law professor, multiple author, and the gentleman that we turn to for our legal advice, Alan Dershowitz, joins us on the telephone. Alan, let me get right to this. The lawyer that we're speaking to right now, Roger Gannam, says the governor has the power to provide for another officer to issue these licenses. Is he correct?
Yes. In fact, I have no quarrel with that part of what he said. I think we do need to accommodate religious views if they can be reasonably accommodated. And I'm often on the side of religious accommodation if, in fact, there's no barrier to gay people getting married. And by the way, the governor, not only the governor can do it, the court can do it. We had a case in Massachusetts where the federal court actually ordered the mandate to be issued. The federal court can say that all of these marriages are valid. The federal court can say that the marriage certificate should be issued, but not under her name. All of those things are possible. I agree that I think putting her in jail probably made a martyr and a hero out of her. But the point I want to make, and I'd love to hear a lawyer respond to this, is imagine how different this would be if some clerk somewhere has said, I refuse to marry divorced people. Because Jesus could not have been clearer about that in the New Testament, that marriage is forever, divorce is never, ever religiously permitted, and no person who is a true Christian should marry a couple in which one of the parties has been divorced. There'd be nobody supporting her on this. So the issue here is not religious freedom as much as it is bigotry. I think that what explains the widespread support for her is not her religious claim, but the fact that she is not allowing the marriage of gay people. If it were not allowing the marriage of divorced people, she'd be ridiculed, laughed at, and condemned. 50 years ago, of course, religious people were saying the Bible prohibits miscegenation. That is, the Bible prohibits the marriage of a black person with a white person. People were claiming that as a religious basis. There was a religious basis claim for slavery during the Calhoun period leading up to the Civil War.
Okay, let me do this,
Alan. So we can't allow religious claims to mask what often is cover for bigotry.
I'm almost out of time. I have 30 seconds left. Mr. Gannam, would you like to respond?
Well, it's absolutely wrong to equate this to the anti-miscegenation laws. Those injected race into the institution of marriage, and it was right for us to remove race right
What about
back out
Alan Dershowitz's point, though, about divorce and the way the Bible felt about divorce?
It's an interesting hypothetical, but Kim Davis has worked in that office for almost 30 years, and that's never come up, and that's not this case.
Well, isn't she herself divorced? Isn't she herself divorced?
So what if she is? She's not trying to prohibit anyone who's divorced.
But she got remarried. No, she got remarried after being divorced in clear violation of Jesus' command. So how can we take seriously her strong feelings about gays being married when she herself violated the strongest principle of Christianity against multiple marriage?
All right, gentlemen, unfortunately, we are all out of time on this, but I'll tell you what, I'm going to bring the two of you back in. We're out of time tonight. Please, both of you, we're going to get back into this week, and we're going to answer these questions. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us. The Hardline continues.